Today is a significant day. It's a day when a number of people who didn't even know about the Emancipation Proclamation, when people were informed that they were no longer legally enslaved, that they had a right to be free and they had a right to be people.
Juneteenth was known amongst the blacks, but it was never recognized as an actual event where there were still slaves even after the Emancipation Proclamation, all those things that took place, even after the Civil War ended. There were still slaves out in Texas and so forth, other states that they were still in bondage, even though all that had been lifted.
It's about the blacksmiths and the seamstresses and the musicians and the farmers and the soldiers and all of the other activities and professions that African Americans have participated in back in the past. And so we're trying to start an educational program and bring the, I'm with First Unitarian also, and to bring the Unitarians into the community to help with the education and become a part of what's going on. You may know. We had a very important colored infantry from Ohio. They were very well decorated. They were acclaimed for the things that they did, their bravery and their fighting in the Civil War.
Everybody has history, whether you was on a good side of history or a bad side of the history, and you should know your history, especially the bad, not to repeat those again.
Got my hand on a gospel plow, won't take nothing for my journey now. Keep your hand on the plow and you hold right on. Hold on, hold on. Keep your hand on the plow and you hold right on.
In terms of Juneteenth, we at First Unitarian are a social justice congregation, and this is a large event for social justice. The recognition from 1865 Texas, when the enslaved people were informed that technically they had already been freed, they had just not been informed of that fact. So this is a time to celebrate freedom and to come and kind of have a party.
So I'm here with a group called Toledo Persists, and we are just out here trying to register people to vote and talk a little bit about voter protection and the election that's coming up and the importance of voting in November. Get out to vote and, learn about candidates in your local area, because the local candidates are so important to where our tax dollars go. So learn who's on the ballot locally, and if you're so inclined, get involved. Get involved with a group like Toledo Persists or, the party that you're affiliated with, because we need all the help we can get to get the word out about really good candidates.
Are you really afraid?
Today our goal really is just to celebrate the freedom that the people in Galveston and in Texas in general heard about 2 years after everybody else realized that they were freed men. To do that and to remind people of that historic fact. You don't often hear about these things in your history classes. In fact, you don't often hear about Buffalo Soldiers in your American history. And one of the things we try to make sure that kids understand is it's not just a matter of black history, it's American history. These men and women fought all the way from after the Civil War, and even some Buffalo Soldiers, although they weren't called that then, were at Galveston that day. We want kids to know that there's a history of service from African Americans, and it continues to this day, and that's why we do service in the community. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary last year, so we'll be celebrating 11 years coming up in October. We actually have a party planned already for October 5th that'll be open to the public. It's also the night that we'll award our scholarships, which we do every year. It gives the community an opportunity to come and join us, meet us, learn a little bit more about us, and celebrate our triumphs throughout the year, the ones that we have, and also help us plan for the following year for what we're going to do here in Northwest Ohio.
So we are here just to let people know about all the amazing things that we're doing at Big Brothers Big Sisters, and also potentially recruit some volunteers. One of the programs that we're currently running right now is our Empowering Future Leaders program, and so that is running right now all the way through July 18th, and all you have to do is be ages 6 through 16 to be a part of our program. So we teach them life skills, we teach them leadership development, how to be a positive role model. We're always looking for people who are interested in being a big sister or a big brother, because we do have a great need for that. We have over 200 kids on our waiting list. It's really only just 48 hours out of the year that you would invest in a child's life. So we also provide activities for them to do. So we sponsor different events like taking them to the opera or taking them to urban air at no cost to them, because they're already giving us their time. So it's really a minimal amount of their time. That's what they would be doing, and they would be really making an investment in the child's life.
time.
Nobody anywhere close to it.
Well, I've seen that, but I came to study the city Washington. I've seen that one doing a couple of years before that. Yeah. I fly from the area fun.
Yes.
And I was going to, I forget who it was. He was a member for umpteen odd years, but two of us. And I think he retired. Yeah, I think so.
I think it's been 9 years I've been a member now.
But he'd been a member for 50 years. She'd come all the time. She was always a friend. She didn't show up.
Yeah, I think John is here with Joe.
This is Daryl.
Hi, Daryl. I'm Terry.
This is Terry.
I've not seen you around here.
Yeah, I've been around.
Well, you've been here, like, what do you say, 9 years?
Yeah.
I haven't been here 9 months.
That's okay.
I have been here more than 9 weeks.
Okay.
I just show up sporadic.
That's fine. You're welcome whenever you show up.
Oh, well, I should also say in my defense, I have also come to YouTube like 6 times.
Okay.
Including last week.
It works out good. It's that 10, 15 minutes of watching the back of everybody's head before the service starts. And I kid my friends. I saw.
You are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whoever you love, we welcome you. Whoever you love, we welcome you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Toledo on this July 21st, 2024. I am Karen Christie, your service associate today. Leading us this morning is Senior Minister Reverend Tim Barger, and our music is led by guest musician Randall Ritchie over on the piano. Our story is led by by our Director of Lifelong Learning, Ginny Gottman. And back in the media booth is our media team. Walter McGee is our producer, director. Andy Gottman is on cameras. And Jeff Slauson is at the soundboard. We are a church with no official creed or doctrine. Instead, we covenant to support each other in our individual search for truth and meaning. We welcome everyone. If you are a visitor, you may notice in the pew rack in front of you a bookmark with some details about Unitarian Universalism. Feel free to take it with you. There is also a yellow card that you may use to introduce yourself to us. If you include your email address, we will send you our weekly email news with the various activities here at church. As you meet people today, feel free to introduce yourself and ask any questions you may have. And if you are in need of a name tag, there is a sheet you can sign up for a name tag right by the main door as you come into the church. And if you need to have changes made to your name tag, just fill out a form to have that done. We welcome those of you who are joining virtually on our YouTube channel this morning. Later in the service, I will encourage those of you here to attend our coffee, conversation, social hour in Fellowship Hall right at the conclusion of this service. It is one of the perks of making this Sunday service a regular in your schedule when you attend in person.
And good morning. I'm Reverend Tim. Let me add to Karen's welcome. And I don't often give a singled out welcome as well, but today I did notice that John Pettigrew is here after a long time not being able to be here on Sundays. So I want to give a special welcome to John. And in many Unitarian Universalist churches, in our services, we light a chalice, a flame in a bowl that originated with the Unitarian Service Committee using a lit chalice to indicate safe spaces in Europe during World War II. The flame itself symbolizes courage and illumination and honors our search for truth and meaning. Shall we say the words for lighting our chalice together? The words will be on the screen. We are Unitarian Universalists with minds that think, hearts that love, and hands that are ready to serve. Together we care for our earth and work for friendship and peace in our world. And while we're reciting together, Karen will lead us in saying the covenant of our congregation. This is not a creed, but what we share with general agreement and what we as a religious community work toward.
Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Today, on our minds, in our hearts, and with our spirits, we think of the ways of the world, the state of the nation, the serenity of our own souls. There are people in our circles who, with their family and friends, have challenges of life and death, health and illness, home and travel, financial security, and monetary stress. Decisions are being made by ourselves and by others on how we can live our best lives, which sometimes means aspiring to that and realizing we have moves yet to make to reach aims and goals. And individual and family ways go on with new lives born and many other joys and celebrations. May we be compassionate to all, as we don't know what other people are going through. So treat one another well, giving dignity and compassion. And may we be glad for their celebrations and ours. We have on our minds and our hearts with our spirits the fact that there is disaster by nature and disaster caused by humans. that inequality, inequity, and racism are in our societies, and we can do our own parts not to oppress, to celebrate many cultures, to grow in self and universally. Some of us were reminded this week that high technology can still be affected by human action, such as a poorly designed software update that, in many ways, put parts of many people's actions on hold. I hope we can remember that patience and calmness are good qualities in the midst of chaos. One reason we join in religious gatherings is to realize common links. The uncommon is here too. Let's be together in faith, hope, and love, physically and in spirit. You might have your own items for meditation, contemplation, and prayer. So we include the unsaid here, as we are in community. We can share burdens and be glad for accomplishments. And now please join us for our opening hymn, number 66, When the Summer Sun is Shining. The lyrics will be on the screen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to ask all of my young friends to join me up here if they would like to. All right. Welcome. It's nice to see you. You ready for our story? Once upon a time, there was a town that had a school, and the school was very poor. It didn't have any money, but that was okay. The kids were happy there because they had teachers who were wise and who cared about them very much. One day, one of their teachers gathered the children around, and she said, "We are completely out of money, and we need to buy food. We have exhausted all of our resources. So we need you to go into town and steal things that we can sell for money." And I only want you to steal luxury things, like jewelry, things that people don't really need. And I need you to steal them when nobody is looking. And the kids were surprised, but they turned and talked to each other and started making plans, except for one of the kids, who just stood there with her eyes on the floor. And the teacher said to this student, "Why aren't you making plans with the other kids? Are you lazy? Are you afraid? Don't you care about your school?" And the student said, "I do care about my school, and I'm not lazy and I'm not afraid, but I can't do what you're asking me to do." And the teacher said, "Why not?" And the student said, "I can't steal when no one is looking. I will be there. I will be looking." And the teacher said, "You are the one who has really understood this lesson." All right, let's file out for our day of fun.
May you be filled with gladness. Go in joy. Go in joy. Bless your day with peace and loving kindness. Go in love. Go in love.
Please join me for our time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. This is Listening by Richard S. Gilbert. And today, as the topic is learning, our reading does include students and schools. Listen. This is a noisy world. You may have heard of the story of a dispute in the student union of one university. It seems the presence of a jukebox disrupted conversation. Conversationalists petitioned for removal of the offending machine. Music lovers petitioned to keep it, arguing that it was a very democratic machine. If you do not like what you hear, you can vote with your quarters to hear something else. But the conversationalists replied that what they wanted to hear, silence, was not among the options offered. The ingenious resolution was to include a 3-minute silent disc among the records. We are a verbal group. We are all good at talking. We string endless numbers of words together. By my own calculations, Richard Gilbert wrote, I have probably uttered well over 10 million words from the pulpit over the past 45 years, and that is a conservative estimate. Does the quality of the message vary in inverse proportion to the number of words uttered? Listening, the lost art, the gentle art. In my wiser moments, I know that 1/2 of language is to listen. While I spend much of my time talking, I also do a fair amount of listening. It is hard to say which is of greater value. I do know that greater discipline is required to listen than to talk. To speak comes naturally for most of us. It is our default mode. We speak at the drop of a hint that there is someone who will listen. Charles Townsend Copeland, former beloved professor of English at Harvard, used 2 cramped and inconvenient rooms on the top floor of Hollis Hall. He resisted all attempts to move him to more spacious accommodations, maintaining that the top floor suited him perfectly. It's the only place in Cambridge where God alone is above me. He's busy, but he's quiet. I read of one psychoanalyst who told the story of a patient whom he saw 3 times per week over a period of a year. At every session, the patient lay down upon the couch and plunged into free association. At the end of the year, the man pronounced himself cured and proffered his grateful thanks. The analyst declared that during the whole of this period, he had offered no interpretations whatever. The pupils of the Tendai school used to study meditation before Zen Buddhism entered Japan. 4 of them, who were intimate friends, promised one another to observe 7 days silence. On the first day, all were silent. Their meditation had begun auspiciously, but when night came and the oil lamps were growing dim, one of the pupils could not help exclaiming to a servant, "Fix those lamps." The second pupil was surprised to hear the first one talk. "We are not supposed to say a word," he remarked. "You two are stupid. Why did you talk?" asked the third. "I am the only one who has not talked," concluded the fourth pupil. Life speaks to be heard, says the poet. Sound is a living thing. There is no sound, no language, no music without the listening ear. Without silence between notes, there would be no music. In the Quaker tradition, we have liturgical silence, in which one listens to the Spirit before one speaks. However, as George Bernard Shaw once said about the original form of Quaker worship, "I believe in the discipline of silence and could talk for hours about it." I know what this discipline requires, what discipline this requires, for even when I am listening to another, I am often distracted, thinking ahead to what brilliant thing I am going to say in response. Listening then has a spiritual dimension. It suggests that I am not the center of the cosmos, but rather one source of words among others. It implies that I have no monopoly on wisdom, that true wisdom may be found by listening. Listen. Listen to what others have to say. There is wisdom in all you meet. Listen to the sounds of nature. It speaks and sings and makes music for those who pay attention. Listen. Listen to the impulses of your spirit. Take time to hear your inner yearnings, that still, small voice drowned in the raucous shout. Listen. This is a noisy world. Perhaps this year we will listen. In meditation, contemplation, and prayer, let us listen, hearing 1 minute of silence. Come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
The reading for today is called Graduation by Gary Kowalski. Ever since I graduated from college, I have had a recurring dream. My wife has had it too, as well as a lot of other people I know. In my dream, it is time to take an exam, and I am unprepared. I have not gone to classes all semester. I failed to do the reading. Usually, I am even a little confused about the subject matter. What was being taught? Who was teaching? What was I supposed to learn? No answers are provided. Now it is too late to make up for lost time. With a sense of approaching catastrophe, I realize that although I am about to be tested, I haven't a clue how to pass. What is the meaning of this particular dream? I was never that nervous about taking tests in real life because I was a fairly good student. Why does it seem to be a fixture of our collective unconscious? Surely it concerns something more than lingering classroom jitters. I think it is a dream about the great examination that each of us must face. The items on the exam are the ultimate questions. Who am I? What do I want? What am I afraid of? To whom or what am I committed? Where is my own highest good calling me? This is not just a dream about academic anxieties or forgetting the dates of the Magna Carta. It is about forgetting our own reason for being. We have one lifetime that we know about, and no makeups are allowed. Is it any wonder we are all tossing and turning in our sleep? By the time morning comes, we have to be ready to give some account of ourselves. Sooner or later, we have to answer for how we choose to spend our lives.
The members of First Unitarian Church of Toledo called me to be the Toledo Unitarians' full-time settled minister in 2016, and I was installed in 2017. It's coming up on 8 years since I introduced myself as a candidate to be the minister of this congregation. Over this time, many new people have come through our doors, so a kind of reintroduction seems to be in order. I expect many of you who have been here longer than I haven't kept the minister's own story in the front of your minds. So this July, I've been telling a little bit of my story, grounding the talks in my careers and interests prior to ministry. Last week, the focus was on my librarian background. The week before, it was my time as a journalist. Today might be more foundational and dating from longer ago, as I'll be telling you only a bit about my past as a student. I don't want to tell all the weary details. The point I want to make is that the formal way of learning, going to colleges and universities, enrolling in academic and professional degree programs, was the way I found that I learned well. Many of us here have spent a good amount of time as students. In a 2014 study on the religious landscape, the Pew Research Center found that 2/3 of United States Unitarian Universalists have college degrees. Second among U.S. religious groups to the Hindus, more than 3/4 of whom completed college. People in Jewish, Anglican, and Episcopalian religious groups are next, all at under 60%. I can say, based on that we Unitarian Universalists are a denomination of learners, which might be why we value so highly the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Now, learning and schooling aren't the same. Schooling, or formal education, to me is the more academic part of going to school. Student grades and college degrees, you could say. That gets to my degree string. You see Reverend Doctor in church media, and that degree is my PhD from Syracuse University, but the full degree string is 5 degrees. Evidence that I might have been a professional student and maybe overeducated. I counted 12 undergraduate and graduate schools I've attended, starting with the University of the South, beginning in 1975, then the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, Hendrix College, where I earned a BA in the humanities area, the University of Texas at Austin, 2 degrees specializing in magazine journalism, then reference librarianship, Rice University, Northland University, Syracuse University for my PhD in mass communications and media administration. It came with this impressive hat that I never have occasion to wear. Then Stanford University, Meadville Lombard Theological School, which is the seminary that awarded me the MDiv degree, the Humanist Institute, Chicago Theological Union, and the University of Chicago. We can say that I ended my formal schooling in 2012 when I finally finished the final project for a 3-year graduate program at the Humanist Institute, which I had attended simultaneously with seminary at Meadville Lombard Theological School from 2006 through 2009. A few life events prevented me from completing that scholarly paper on the Unitarian and Humanist minister John Dietrich on time, but I did finish. That might have completed my formal education, but my learning definitely hasn't ended. And neither has time in classes. Part of that is now called continuing education. You could say there's less work in the library and at the keyboard, and it's done now to help me in my ministry rather than for scholarly accomplishment. Over the next year, for example, I'll be engaged in Unitarian Universalist Association continuing education in transitional ministry, as we're all in change and transit. And there's the kind of learning I valued so much from my time at Hendricks, that though it wouldn't have gotten me here as your minister, I think I could have been happy in life doing, using the public library and my own interests to explore whatever might come to my mind, letting the BA serve as the good preparation for lifelong learning, with some specialization a bit beyond the curriculum of secondary school. Off and on through the years, though, I did keep going. I became a professional student. I think most of us who reach the doctor stage in academics have become professional students. One thing about the PhD is that it's pretty much the credential for university teaching. Part of my fellowship at Syracuse required me to be a teaching assistant, a professional student job, for some journalism school courses. My only solo university teaching, though, was a course in copy editing at New York University in 1988, which went fine, but helped me to realize that professoring was not the profession I wanted to pursue. Instead, I returned to the publishing industry as a copy editor for national magazines, while also doing some freelance magazine writing. A big life learning for me was that I'm an eternal student, not so much a teacher. I take in knowledge better than pass it along in a classroom. I hope, though, that the words I share with you from the pulpit do help you to learn. With the exception of the maxim that all ministers really just preach one sermon, no matter how many ways they say it, I hope the variety I bring, a mix of Unitarian Universalist history, current events, spirituality and theology topics, some of my own interests, and I hope not too much of that so I won't scare you away, and support for all of our seeking and sometimes finding helps you to want to learn, to continue your religious and spiritual journeys, that I'm right there with you as a student and learner, sharing what I gather rather than telling just what the knowledge is. Next week's sermon, by the way, is titled Reverend Tim's Sharing, and that final part of this series will be on my ministry. All of this sharing of what I gather does show that I have wide knowledge, which is deep in a few pockets, such as ministry and media. My liberal arts education helped that to develop, of course. And it might have contributed to my taking so long to settle on a career, this final one, I expect, as a Unitarian Universalist minister. I began college without having to declare a major. My interest was English, and I thought I'd like to be a writer, which I've done in different forms throughout my life. Or if not a writer, a high school English teacher. As I told you earlier in this series, at Hendricks in my final year, I discovered philosophy. And somehow the philosophers exploring of aspects of, shall I say, life, the universe, and everything my favorite phrase from Douglas Adams, called to me, and I changed my major to take in the philosophy classes. I explored other fields in my learning journey, but ended up with diplomas in the humanities, journalism, library and information science, mass communications, and ministry. And now I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister, preaching that we concentrate on this world that we know, that we can learn here rather than believe what might come next. The pulpit is the closest I come to teaching, but I think I try more to encourage you to explore rather than to teach you facts to remember and use. I wonder if that's in any way tied to Unitarian Universalism itself, not itself being a leader in providing education for people's learnings. Unitarianism and Universalism as systems from which to provide general education to people outside of Unitarian Universalism is small. I'm not talking about our religious education. I mean schools and teachers and students. These days in the U.S., the only schools centered in Unitarian Universalism are two seminaries to train not just potential ministers, but others who might want to anchor their work in the foundations of this liberal religion. Those are Meadville Lombard Theological School, where I went, and Starr King School for the Ministry. Other theological schools, for example, the Methodist Theological School of Ohio, where our student minister seminarian Melissa Jeter studies, has a Unitarian Universalist track, but is not itself a Unitarian Universalist institution. There are only a few other examples of Unitarian education still in existence. There's Harris Manchester College, part of the University of Oxford in England. One of its specialties is mature students, and it doesn't accept anyone under age 21. In Transylvania, in Romania, the Unitarians there, our relations from earlier Christian history, have some Unitarian high schools, including the John Sigismund Unitarian Academy, the Protestant Theological Institute of Cluj, and the Berde Moses Unitarian Gymnasium. Back in the U.S., there are some schools begun by Universalists, but no longer tied to the Unitarian Universalist Church, such as Tufts University, St. Lawrence University, and one some of you might be a bit more familiar with, what was Bucktail College, which is now the University of Akron. I've been around long enough that one of my own schools has changed. My high school was the Sewanee Academy, owned by the University of the South. A few years after I received my diploma, the university sold the boarding school to our crosstown rival, St. Andrew's School, and today it's St. Andrew's Sewanee School. I'm planning to be there next spring for my 50th anniversary of graduation. I do say that I've finally finished my formal schooling. Sometimes I might fantasize about a return to the classroom. Ohio public universities let seniors audit classes for free but they don't award academic credits or degrees or credentials. And I can let that "what if I went back to school" feeling pass pretty easily now. Plus, there is required continuing education as a Unitarian Universalist minister. So I get some of that group members focused on a topic experience professionally now. And someday, instead of a student's homework, I'll get to the books I've always wanted to read and haven't had the concentrated time for. The past 2 weeks, I brought up the topics I was speaking on, journalism and libraries, also being considered as religions themselves by some people. Of course, I had to search that same avenue for education. Here's what I found on the employment-related website, LinkedIn. Education is a Religion by Olga Prishbalov from 2019. She wrote in part, "If higher education is a religion, then I am a devout believer. For a majority of us who have earned a degree past high school, we believe that education is one of the main keys to success. Education opens doors. It provides a more diverse worldview. It teaches important life skills. What are some qualifiers of education that make it a religion? Why do we view education as an accepted norm that should be available to all? Education has a set of beliefs. The main is that formal education is necessary for everyday life. There are ritual observances. One of the main ritual observances of education is attendance. The second would be doing homework, whether that'd be reading the textbooks, writing the research papers, or communicating with classmates or professors. Similarly, most religions have those same rituals. Individuals have to attend church or other forms of gathering, study the spiritual texts, and live in community with other believers. An important moral code of education is to have an open mind. We are taught to be accepting of new ideas. At that same time, we are taught to be skeptical and to think critically and analytically about any information presented to us. Maybe I say education isn't a religion, but it parallels the religious journey, doesn't it? Both in learning and in the schooling itself. Is your denomination Wolverine or Buckeye, for example? This Longhorn asks. Plus, we spiritual seekers, religious explorers who value religion as more than an ecstatic experience of realization and conversion, use the methods of education to seek, to seed, to seat, and to grow our faith. I also want to say that with 2/3 of Unitarian Universalists having college degrees, some of us kind of see that as the norm and might even adopt a little bit of an elitist attitude about education. Don't get too high about learning. Know that many of the smartest people have not had the ability, whatever the circumstances are, whether it's having to support their families or work, having life experiences that interrupt their education, or just not seeing school as their way, but being smart, being wise, learning about the world and knowing it very well, becoming sage themselves, you can say. And we can learn much from them and not hold education above anybody. We can appreciate that we have had the advantages to be able to go to school, especially in days like now when education is changing so much and becoming so expensive that others just cannot take part in schooling even if they want to. I've told you some of my learning today. I know that you also have learning. Page back in your life texts and consider how your education brought you to Unitarian Universalism. Explore your what-ifs and school diversions. See how learning is life much more than schooling is. But what you learn in your formal education is what makes you better able to live it now. So be it.
Thank you, Reverend Tim. These words for the offering are by Victoria Weinstein. This congregation is a theologically diverse religious community with membership open to all who are in accordance with our principles, mission, and vision. We are an independent member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association, an association of approximately 1,000 congregations in this country and elsewhere in the world. Our congregation is entirely self-governed and financially supported by the voluntary generosity of our members and friends. To this end, let there be an offering to sustain the work of this beloved community. We're returning to our practice of passing the plate. The challenge is that we're going to try it without ushers, one basket for each side of the aisle, and you in the congregation pass the basket along. You might have to get up to take it to someone sitting a little bit distance from you down the pew or in the pew behind you. So do a brief stretch in preparation if you need to. When the basket reaches the back of the sanctuary, one designated person will take them to the office. And if the basket misses you, there's still a basket in the lobby so that you can leave your donation on your way to coffee hour. If you have cash and want that credited to your contribution, you might put it in an envelope that you find on the pew rack in front of you. Put your name on it, or if you give a check, just note in the memo line if you want the funds directed towards your pledge or another purpose. There are other ways to give too. You can use either QR code shown on the screen. This is the one for Venmo. The other one goes to our website, or you can go to uutoledo.org and click Give and then Online Giving. Or you can mail a check to First Unitarian Church, 3205 Glendale Avenue, Toledo, 43614. As First Unitarian Church of Toledo is a self-supporting congregation, we are very grateful for your contributions.
It's the coming soon part of our service where we tell you what's on the calendar for next week, we give some announcements, and we also let you know what's up for right after the service. Join us for Spiritual Forum at 9:45 on Sunday when we'll return to our Coffee House of Cards discussion series. We'll read about some hypothetical ethical quagmires and discuss how we might handle them using our Unitarian Universalist values as our guide. Join us for this fun, community-building conversation. Then for the Sunday service at 11 a.m. here in the sanctuary and on our YouTube channel. I'll conclude this July series with Reverend Tim's sharing when I'll focus on my journey to and life now in ministry.
And here's an update on our plans to put up Pride and Pan-African flags on the front of our building to signify our welcome in time for them to be put up for the Toledo Pride Festival, which begins August 23rd. The flags are now on order. Would you like to help pay for putting them up on the building? The total cost for materials and installation is not confirmed yet, but it looks like it will be about $300 for a sign company to bring their people and equipment. We want to be sure that the flags are attached securely. If you give a check, you can mail it or put it in the offering basket, and please mark flag on the memo line. If you'd like to pay online from our portal via uutoledo.org, click Give and Online Giving. If flag isn't an option, mark the special fundraiser box. Venmo asks, "What's this for?" and you can answer flag. Note that the photo is a mock-up and the flags might be different in size and placement. And this coming Wednesday at 7 p.m. in the Chopek Room will be the regular monthly meeting of the Board of Trustees with the changes in members that began July 1st. The meetings are open to First Unitarian members to attend and observe. And the final coming soon entry is for me to invite you to join us in Fellowship Hall after today's service for coffee, conversation, social time, and a potluck lunch. If you didn't bring food yourself, that's fine, as it seems we always have plenty for all.
As Karen extinguishes our chalice flame, please join me in reciting the words for us figuratively to send some Unitarian Universalist fire into the community. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace, holding, knowing, and centering love in your lives, and sharing love in your actions.
Thank